So this has been a very long journey to bring all of us here together, and I'm so thankful that we were able to find this time because I think it's going to be a really beautiful conversation. I'm curious about what brought you to this work. So how has mass incarceration impacted your life, your work, the projects you've taken on?
Well, mass incarceration impacted my life because I was incarcerated when I was 23 years old, and that was around the time that Bill Clinton, the tough on crime bills, and all those different things were happening. That really influenced me coming out of jail or coming out of prison to kind of sit back, look at my community, see what was happening. I had a lot of friends that were in and out of jail. I had family members in and out of prison. So I had a front row seat to really see what was going on, but I never had any explanation as to why it was going on.
My stepfather was incarcerated for 15 years before he met my mom, and he was 17 whenever he got locked up. And the father of my child went to Illinois prison. Really seeing the back end of that really affected me.
I am a formerly incarcerated person. And so these are the challenges that I had. I had the challenges of getting my children back. I had the challenges of going back to school. And so I was able to have the knowledge to be able to do that, but some people don't. And so that's what I was here for, was to be able to use that knowledge to be able to help other women.
I came in contact with the criminal justice system, criminal legal system, and because I was hanging out with Black and brown kids. So I was always being witness to police harassment, seeing my friends appear and disappear in the jail, carceral system. In 2005, eventually, the Chicago police arrested my friend and I and sent us to the precinct jail, and I made it all the way to the Cook County Jail on some ticky-tacky charges, some trumped-up charges that were eventually thrown out.
I came to Champaign-Urbana 11 years ago in 2009, and I came here on parole from state prison in California. So for me, the first community that I connected up with really here was my family, because I'd been separated from my family for 6.5 years of incarceration, and also separated from my mother, who moved here from California for 27 years because I was a fugitive for justice during that time and I didn't get to see her. So that's a memory of a small community, family community that we created here.
I moved here with my mom originally, and she was in a wheelchair, and I connected pretty early on then to the disability community to get support for her. It's been a comfortable place for me to live. It's been a very comfortable place to raise a family. This is a comfortable base for me to engage in activism that I often find very frustrating and really, really hard.
How has mass incarceration impacted the community or communities you belong to?
So I got here in Illinois in 2004 and live here in Champaign-Urbana. It's the Midwest. I figured like it's a small college town. I'm not going to really hear much of these stories, But I was here within 3 weeks, and I talked to a Black youth in Champaign who described me being roughed up by the Champaign police. So I started investigating those stories. The cities and the university itself, through the police, control the Black population here, keep them under thumb. And, the local police forces are the primary way that happens.
The statistics speak for themselves. Even here in Champaign or in the state of Illinois, 13% African American. If you look at the prison population, it fluctuates between 40 and 50%.
I think that society has done a really good job of villainizing people, especially poor Black and brown folks, to the point that anything that happens to them is almost justified. And that's both like in society as a whole and even amongst a lot of Black folks, a lot of Black and brown folks, right?
I think we have to recognize that mass incarceration is not about crime. It's about the political choices that the United States has made to solve social problems. So what the choices that the United States government has made, and local and state governments have made the similar choice, is that they solve problems by punishing people.
Immediately when crimes are committed with mental health or even with drug-related crimes, they automatically are convicted without thinking about like treatment or without thinking about other alternatives for behavioral health issues or challenges that people are facing.
Anytime harm is done, anytime violence is done, anytime people are hurt, there are multiple harms that are revealed once you scratch under the surface of that. You're likely to find hurt and suffering and pain and issues that can be addressed through structural investment.
If we're thinking back to this idea of a just society, right? So like we, in each of our individual conversations, talked about what that might look like to us. I'm curious about what would need to change in either Champaign-Urbana or Illinois at large to create a truly just society. What adjustments would be made? What policies would have to change? That kind of thing.
First of all, we need to address or acknowledge that, since our time here in this country, as far as Black people, things have always been stacked up against us. So there has to be first and foremost reparation.
Decriminalizing. That's the biggest thing for me, decriminalization. And that's a just system for me, because if we did that, then probably more than half of the population in the prisons wouldn't even be there.
It's not mass incarceration that is the enemy. And I want to quickly say that that doesn't mean I'm pro mass incarceration, but it does mean that I don't understand the problem to be that we have too many people locked up. I don't understand the problem to be that we've gone over our limit and that we have to get back down to some sweet number where we have just the right number of people locked up.
In order for our current society to stay the way it is, there has to be haves and there has to be have-nots, right? And whenever there are all these have-nots, we have to have a way to deal with it. And our current institutions are set up in a way to keep this going, right? So even if we kind of, like this whole slow progress thing, even if we slightly tweak one thing over here, the system is really it's set up to adapt and keep the same things going on. So a lot of these institutions would have to be just completely dismantled and brought back up in a different way, right?
I think for me, a really important piece is a philosophical change, a different frame of mind, a different paradigm of how we see community, who's part of the community, who has rights in the community, and who has rights to power in the community.
We need not just to set the people free, from prisons, from police control, but we need, community control, which means investing in our schools. That means providing services for people with mental health issues. That means addressing poverty in a real way. That means creating jobs for people, good jobs. That means creating a strong healthcare system. There's a lot of talk about defunding the police, but the hard part is really investing in our communities and making our communities work better.
What can we do, either personally or in a coalition with other organizations or what have you? What can we do to get there?
We have a large network of people here doing this kind of work in Champaign-Urbana.
We have 2 recovering transition houses in Champaign County for women that are coming out of prison, jail, or treatment centers. And so what we do here is we encourage women to go back to school. A matter of fact, we have 2 that are trying to go back to school now. So we're, assisting them in any way that we can. We are trying to break the trauma to addiction to prison pipeline. That's what we're here for, to provide help without judgment.
The Education Justice Project is a college and prison program. We've been operating for about 12 years now, primarily out of Danville Correctional Center, which is a men's medium security prison. And we offer 4-credit courses in the humanities and a bunch of other things, and do a lot of extracurricular programming, and also helping to open doors for them upon release.
When I was released, I was determined to do two things. One, to find ways to fight against mass incarceration through activism in the community. And secondly, then to write and research about it and produce materials that would be accessible to people who had been directly impacted by mass incarceration.
So First Followers has been up and running since 2015, so that's roughly about 5 years. It's a reentry program, and the inspiration comes from my own personal and my own lived experience as far as being formerly incarcerated, and understanding the transition back into the community, how difficult and challenging it was for me. You know, we believe in informing individuals so that they awaken, right? Because again, these things happen around us, but oftentimes we're not really sure what's happening around us. We can feel it, but at the same time, instead of saying what's happening, we have to dig deeper to answer the why it's happening.
You know, I'm working with a project that is working in collaboration, an inside-outside prison project called Parole Illinois, that is based in Stateville Prison and Logan Women's Prison. And that's a campaign that's really led from folks on the inside. You know, we've seen the issue of nonviolent offenses being addressed through legislation, but there's people sitting inside with decades, years and years and years of time who never have any hope of getting out. We don't have the death penalty in Illinois, but we have death by incarceration. And so there's a lot of folks that are still on the inside who we need to get out. So I think we need to really keep on thinking about how we get beyond those walls.
It doesn't have to be a solution that's imposed from on top. We have lots of natural experiments going on. And I do imagine that that's the way change is going to come. That this small town here and this county here and this city here are going to implement reforms, changes to the criminal justice system that are more in line with transformative justice and restorative justice principles.
Keep, tick and tack away at this system, and something's got to give eventually, I think.
Maybe there will be an end, and we want to be part of that end.